Hey everybody, it's Mike and our guest appearance here with EJ. He's been doing a lot of fishing out there. So we have a lot of species out in the bay to catch right now, all the way up north, all the way down south. So we have a lot of species to go over, just about everywhere, rivers, main bay. So let's start off with the rivers. I know you've been catching a lot of fish out there with your favorite technique of trolling.
Yes, particularly rockfish. This time of year is great to be fishing in the rivers. I mean, they're everywhere, but I like to fish in the rivers. Lots of bait in the rivers. You can definitely mark the bait on your depth finder. You may not necessarily see birds breaking, but they're there. So trust your electronics. And very quickly, here's a couple of techniques that I like to use in the rivers. I like going with the smaller swim shad. And you can do this a couple different ways. You can troll with them. I particularly like to troll, or you can jig them. I like to pair them up with about a 1 ounce jig head. So I have a couple of the different colors here from GI Jig. Those are my favorite. And the key here to pairing these things up is to get some color contrast. So absolutely I skirt them. So I'll just give you an example here. So skirt here, if I had this pink skirt on here, I would not use this pink head. I would probably use this chartreuse or this yellow here, or the candy corn over here. That's definitely worked for me. Done really well with this technique. Some other things that I do with this is I'll pair up these jig heads with the Gulp Mullets. So back in the old days, we would bounce bucktails and minnows. You can't bounce minnows anymore because they're considered live lining. So I switched it up with the Gulp, and it sure enough works. It works really well. So just marking that fish on the bottom, dropping in front of them, letting the current take you over it, and just bouncing it almost like you're jigging, and they just nail it. So it's a lot of fun to fish that way. Very quickly, when I troll, Mike, I don't use the traditional trolling equipment like the big sticks. I don't use that. I use my spinning equipment. And guys, it's a lot of fun out there to hook up a 20, 25, 26 inch rockfish on your 6 foot medium, your 7 foot medium with your 2500 reel on there. It's a lot of fun. So that's a couple of different things I do. Some other things that you could use are some of these tsunamis. Same deal. Again, for me personally, I've had the best success with the holographic types of tsunamis. The fish are everywhere, though. Really, I mean, they're definitely doing well. Top water starting to heat up in the rivers as well as outside of the rivers, like around that Love Point area.
Yep, you're looking for just basically structure, shorelines, down trees, rock jetties, just points with current, anything that you can see structure that's still like a foot to 4 foot water has been really good for top water. I personally prefer a spook style bait like we've got here on the table from Hedden. The blackhead with the chartreuse is a good one. You can also go with just a chugging popper as well. But typically when the water is super rough, I'll go with a popping style bait. And then with the water's a little bit calmer, I'll use a walk the dog style bait. That's just personal preference. That way you can work it a little bit easier as well.
Yep. And guys, don't forget the Bay Bridge.
Yes.
It always holds fish. And if you're into bait fishing, soft crab around that bridge, you are going to 100% catch something. Rockfish, perch, croaker.
Yep. Definitely croakers.
For sure. So that's some of the things that I like to do. Mike, can you talk a little bit about some other species out there, like some of the Spanish and that sort of thing?
Spanish mackerel are still here, very thick. There are reports all the way up to the mouth of Severn. Everybody's just either trolling or casting metals, or even jerkbaits, casting jerkbaits in the middle of the breaking fish. Trolling guys using inlines or the number 1 or number 2 planers with some smaller drone spoons, Clark spoons, or the bomber spoons from Hardhead. If you're casting, best luck is going to be with either gotcha plugs, these Hoagie epoxy jigs, and particularly this color, and as well as the GI rain minnows with that good tinsel flash on the hook.
Yeah, we got the rain minnows in.
Yes, we did.
Yes,
so,
good.
but those just casting out and ripping it across the water as quick as you can. You can let it sink, and if you want to try catching some rockfish, you can just drop it straight down and vertical jig it versus burning it in. Another good technique for this time of year, as it gets a little bit into the fall, jerk baits. A lot of people want catching jerk baits. The river, the main bay, like around Thomas Point Lighthouse has been a good place to throw these, as well as smaller paddle tails. are really good because the fish are really keying into the shallows and this size baits.
Mike, for me with the jerk baits, I love to fish the jerk baits. It feels like it extends that top water bite a little bit longer.
Yeah, so the fish stop hitting the top, you can just do a little subsurface ish and still catch them. I know exactly what you're
it's
saying.
a fun feeling too, guys. If you've never done it, you got to try it. So when you pull on this thing, it actually darts down into the water, and the fish nails it, and it's a lot of fun.
So other species, red drum.
Yep.
So we've had a lot of reports of red drum being all the way up to the mouth of Eastern Bay and south. We want to target those fish by just, if you're driving around looking for fish, if you see basically giant, almost look like boulders or rocks or school buses on the bottom on your fish finder, you want to have a big rod rigged up with a big bait. I prefer these Streak XL Z-Man 8-inch. I like the bubblegum pink or the hot chartreuse are my two favorite go-to colors. And I'll rig these on a 1 ounce jig head. I prefer GI. Just like EJ said earlier, contrast. Contrast is your favorite friend there. So I'll use like this, the go-to color here with this pink bubblegum, and it'll give it really good contrast to catch those big fish. And then I will, of course, lather it up with Procure. That's just, I lather everything up with Procure.
Yeah, that stuff really works.
It does.
That is really not a gimmick. It's oily, it's smelly. It really, really works, guys. Yep.
And then Cobia. So basically, Cobia are definitely being caught trolling the big hoses, as well as the big drone spoons and hardhead bomber spoons, basically from Solomon's down. So you can use your number 2, number 3 planer and throw those big hoses. I've been doing really well, around 4 to 5 knots, typically for the Cobia. Been doing really well on those. Not a ton. You can chum form or chunk form as well. People have been doing that down towards Smith Island, Point Lookout, that area.
Cool.
Catching a lot of rays, but you're going to catch some Cobia as well.
Cool. Want to talk about the kitty cats for a minute here? Yeah. Guys, there's tons of catfish out there in the bay. They've almost got this cult following now. As I'm working in the store, people are coming in and they're specifically asking, how do I target these? Because they're seeing the pictures of these enormous catfish being pulled out of the bay. And it's just been forever. I mean, this bite has been forever. So I'll share with you some of the things that I do with them, but it's really not rocket science. It's a really easy way to fish. I use circle hooks with them. I do use the fish finding rigs. There's a ton of other ways you can do this. I put about a 1.5 to a 2 ounce sinker on there. I do use the bait runner reels. You don't have to. You can set the drag reel loose on your regular reel. Let it out there and let it sit. And when I say it can be anything. It can be LY. It can be fresh LY. It can be frozen LY. It can be soft crab. They love soft crabs.
Speaking of the
peelers,
crabs,
yes.
If you're going for rockfish or catfish with soft crab or even peeler crab, this miracle thread is literally is a miracle. You don't have to cut it. You just basically wrap it, put the crab on the hook and just wrap it around and cinch it tight, and it basically catches into itself, and then you just snap it and it pulls off, and it will just hold that bait on like a little ball of goodness.
Yes.
And it really does work.
It'll save you some money too.
Yes.
So if you're targeting catfish, sometimes you get over top of real little perch or the crocrum. Yep. You get over top of them and they'll strip your hook clean. This gives you a better chance of keeping that bait on there so that you can get that catfish, right?
Yeah.
So the little fish don't get it. So good deal. Cool. What else do we have, Mike?
Perch.
Oh, perch, yes. So guys, I know this may sound redundant, but I'm just here to tell you what's been working for me, and it's still working. And that's, God love these sabiki rigs. They really, really work. And you can tip them or not. I've had a lot of success without tipping them, but then what happens is after you catch your first 20 perch, they eat this little kind of flash on the back off, and then I'll just put on a little bit of either peeler or your tried and true, the bloodworm fish bites, or a piece of bloodworm on here. Drop it down to the bottom. I use a 1 ounce sinker on it and just flick your wrist like this, and not only have we caught perch with this, but we've caught keeper size rockfish. Actually, last week when we were fishing for the white perch open, we caught a flounder up in the Magathie. So that I haven't done that in years. And keeper-size croaker, believe it or not. They're just starting to pop up here and
There's
there.
been a lot more croaker in the bay than years prior. They're not huge, but you're catching a few 12 inchers here and there, and they're just a fun fight, especially on the perch rod. They dig and they just fight really hard.
Absolutely, absolutely. So if you're
Basically
looking
hard bottom. If you're looking for hard bottom, with same place you're finding perch and spot, stuff like that, you'll have croaker mix in.
You got it. So that all goes back to, if you're looking for this kind of one and all rig, that's going to be your sabiki rigs. Yeah.
I guess we can move on to some other species like speckled trout. Speckled trout has been a little bit slower just because the water has been so hot and the temperature outside has been so hot. You can still find them early mornings in the shallows down like the islands, the Tangier, things like that, throwing small 3 to 4 inch paddle tails, usually 3/16 to 1/4 ounce jig heads, and just slow rolling them across the bottom in those shallows. We catch some small puppy drum as well down there. And like around Poplar, those rocks and around Poplar will hold fish as well. Not only rockfish, but some speckled trout. And I know some people that have been catching rockfish, a few speckled trout around there, and then heard some splashes, turn around, and then they see mackerel porpoising out of the water and catch mackerel, trout, and rockfish all in like the same kind of area. And that's
a good day.
That's a great day.
That's a really good day.
Bluefish are mixed in as well. Bigger bluefish than we have normally.
Nice.
Not like those bluefish that are that big. I mean, we're catching some up to 18 inches, which is really like they are fun, especially on your light tackle jigging rods. They do put up a fight.
That's a good eating size too.
Oh yeah. Yep. So crabs.
Oh yes,
Can't forget about our crustacean friends.
Yeah, lots of crabs out there now, guys. If you've been out, you know this. You're going to catch your crabs, but you may have to weed through some of the smaller ones for some reason, and I guess this is a good sign. There's tons and tons of smaller crabs out there. Even when I was out there fishing in the Magathie, I saw a lot of swimmers, a lot of small swimmers, but I also saw a lot of big doublers, and this is like in the middle of the day, so which is a really great sign. So guys are getting their crabs. Mix your depths up. If you have a trout line that's split in half, so you have 600 and 600 foot, what I like to do is prospect, so I'll put one a little bit shallower, one a little bit deeper. Where I'm getting them, you got it. And where I'm getting them, I'll move the other one over too. Same deal with your pots or your pool pots. We had a kids event a couple of weeks ago. We weren't doing anything in the shallow. We moved them a little bit deeper, and we were getting 28 crabs a run. So just that little bit of a movement, don't be afraid to try to move around a little bit. Could make all the difference.
And that's a great tip. That's what a lot of people will just run their full 1,200 foot line. But I always try to tell people, just cut it in half and have another anchor. You will cover more ground. You'll definitely figure out where the crabs are, because it's a pain in the butt to pull up a trout line if you don't have a winder, let alone a 1,200 foot. Just 600 foot, take a break. Another 600 foot is key. Yeah. What have you found bait wise?
So bait-wise, both of them are working right now. So
Clams
chicken necks and clams. You want to lean one way or the other, but I really can't, because my brother-in-law, between my brother-in-law, myself, everybody that I know, they're using both, and they're both working, which is a great thing. So
Awesome.
I think that's all I have in terms of crabs. And they're everywhere, north of the bridge, south of the bridge.
I think that's just about going to do it. Thank you guys for tuning into this week's Fishing Report. We'll see you next week.
Thanks.